Who's that one person you never see anymore but think about all the time? Mr. Godfrey was my neighbor when I was a child. My mom worked extremely hard to make ends meet for us. During the summers I would stay with my great-grandmother during the days. Mr. Godfrey was my grandmother's next-door neighbor. We lived in the city in an area referred to as Bottom. In the middle of violence and pain, Mr. Godfrey was also a positive ray of light in the community. He had a porch that was covered in artificial grass. It had a yellow swinging chair hooked to the top of the covering. This was back in the day when kids used to play outside with each other, and every day without fail I would see Mr. Godfrey on his porch. I had severe anxiety back then. I had seen my first dead body at the age of 5. My father had been shot on the sidewalk across the street in a case of mistaken identity. It scared me to death to go outside after that. Life was valued so little, and the death of my father made me think that one day a bullet could materialize out of thin air and end my life before it even began. There was only one thing that could pull me outside, and that was Mr. Godfrey's song. Every day, at 4 o'clock he would take his trumpet out and play a song. I would sit on the plastic seats on my great-grandma's porch and watch Mr. Godfrey blow his soul into that horn. Whatever song he chose to play for that minute was the soundtrack of the kids playing cops and robbers or jumping rope. He blasted that thing so loud you could hear it from 2 blocks down at the basketball court over the sound of bouncing balls and chain nets. His melodies took me to a place far away from the city. It made me feel like I could do anything and be anyone. I imagined myself as a superhero whenever I heard his rendition of the When the Saints Go Marching In. I begged my mom for a trumpet for an entire school year. I didn't want to play basketball or football, or even soccer. All I wanted to do was make those sounds Mr. Godfrey made. Back then, I had no concept of money. I had no idea I was even poor. My mom made sure I was fed because my mother would skip meals. I was always happy because my mother made sure to do everything in her power to make my dreams come true. Now that I know how great her sacrifice was, I realize how much I should have appreciated that trumpet. For a year, she didn't go out and she barely slept. She fought tooth and nail to give me that one present for my birthday. The first day of that next summer I took my trumpet outside and tried to mimic the hand motions and finger placement of Mr. Godfrey. I blew as hard as I could on my trumpet, but no sound came out. I wanted to cry. I thought the trumpet was broken until Mr. Godfrey told me to come over to his porch. I'll never forget the moment he taught me how to form my embouchure. That first sound that came out of my trumpet was euphoric. Over the course of that summer, I would go over to Mr. Godfrey's and he would teach me everything he knew. We started playing together at 4 o'clock. Every day I felt myself getting better and better. There was no better feeling in the world at that time. However, I also felt Mr. Godfrey getting older and older. His songs were less lively. His fingers didn't move as quickly on the valves. He would repeat things a lot at our lessons. By the time that next summer came around I was a trumpet player. I was so excited to show Mr. Godfrey how much I had improved over the course of that year. Our school didn't have a music program so I had to practice by myself every day. It probably drove my mom crazy, but she would never stop me. On that first day when 4 o'clock rolled around, I ran out to my great-grandmother's porch and eagerly awaited Mr. Godfrey. After about 10 minutes, a woman dressed in scrubs rolled Mr. Godfrey out in a wheelchair. It was odd seeing him like this. He had always been so full of life. One thing that I knew would never change was Mr. Godfrey's trumpet. He held it in his lap as he was rolled onto the porch. I ran over enthusiastically and gave him a huge hug. He was happy to see me too. I asked him, "What happened?" He said, "Oh, my haircut? I thought I would go for a new look." I laughed, and then we marched those saints in. After we were done, his caregiver wheeled him back inside. She turned to me and told me that I would no longer be able to come for lessons every day because Mr. Godfrey was getting weaker and needed some rest. I was heartbroken, but took solace in the fact that I could still play with him from my porch every day. We continued doing just that. One day, I brought my trumpet outside and waited for the caretaker to come wheeling Mr. Godfrey out. I sat for 40 minutes out on the porch by myself before I walked over to his porch and rang on the doorbell. No answer. I rang again. Nothing. I must have rang 6 or 7 times after that before I finally accepted that no one was coming out that day. Mr. Godfrey had played his last song. I was devastated. I broke down on the porch and put my head between my knees. I was stuck. I finally gained enough courage to lift my head up and look out at the street. I saw girls playing double dutch. I saw the little boys playing cops and robbers. At that moment I remembered how Mr. Godfrey's song had made me feel. He didn't play for just me, or even himself. He played for us. Everyone on the block that needed to feel like they could go anywhere and be anyone. I realized then what I had to do. I blasted my horn so hard they probably heard it down at the art museum. A saint had gone marching into heaven. I gave him a song to help him with the journey. Now I'm an engineer and moved far away from my grandmother's block. I still return every now and then and give back to the community as much as I can. Mr. Godfrey's family had sold his trumpet in an estate sale after he passed. I still have it framed in my living room. Thank you, Mr. Godfrey. Without you, I would not be the man I am today.